Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. For today's midweek meta deck, we are playing Trohck's Legacy Challenge winning AZORIOUS Stoneblade deck. So there's a lot in here because it's a Lorien deck, so let's get right into it. So we have this Stoneforge package, which gets to showcase one of the new cards in Assimilation Aegis. This is a 3-mana equipment. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to one target creature until this leaves the battlefield. And when this becomes attached to a creature, that creature becomes a copy of the exiled creature. So you can get rid of something and then you can turn one of your guys into something better. That's the gist with that one. But then we've got like normal stuff like Batterskull, Kaldra Compleat, Lion Sash and Cryptic Coat that we can find with our Stoneforge, which is going to be one of our main plans. We have a whole bunch of removal in this deck. So Pest Control, Marsh Flats, Light, Prismatic Ending, some Solitude, some Plows, a whole bunch of stuff. Counter Magic, we've got Forces, Other Forces, Counterspell, Flusterstorm. You're going to be seeing a lot of one-offs in this deck, and we'll get to that in a second. So we've got Surgical, which is a bit unusual, but it'll make sense in a minute. And Orim's Chant. We have 3 Ephemerate, so we can get more value off our Stoneforge, as well as some of the other cards that we're going to talk about in a sec. We have a 1-of Archaeomancer. This returns an instance or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and we get to blink this with the Ephemerate, which is pretty cool. And that can just set up a permanent lock. So we can just, every turn we get to blink and get a counterspell back in our hand. So we can just generate a counterspell lock with that. That's the reason it's in there. We've got cantrips and Brainstorm, no ponders though. And we have 3 Lorien Revealed. And then we're going to get to the sort of more unusual selection of cards. Some of these not so unusual, like Narset and Teferi. But we have one main deck back to basics. So we're running a mana base that can run around that quite easily. We have 2 Snapcaster Mage, which is, again, a pretty good thing to ephemerate. And it allows us to double up on some of our singletons, you know, like our Counterspells, Flusterstorms, Orim Chants and stuff. But then we have 4 Spellseeker. Now this is a fun one. So this is going to tutor for any instant or sorcery, mana value 2 or less, and put it into our hand. So what we're doing with this is we're finding the Ephemerate, and then we blink this, and then we get to effectively draw 2 cards of our choice. So we can then go and get things like our 1-off Counterspell, Flusterstorm, the Surgical, that's why that's in there, because we can tutor for it. The Orim's Chant. Obviously all of our things like Brainstorms and Plows, and Pest Controls, that sort of jam. So we've got a lot of options there. Mana base wise, we've squeezed in 1 Karakas. We've got 2 Meticulous Archives to try and get a little bit of surveil action. We've got 1 Underground Sea, we've got 1 Swamp, a couple of Tundras, Scrubland, and then the rest is all fetches and basics. And that's pretty much the main deck. It's quite an unusual looking deck, which is why I wanted to give it a go today and feature it on the midweek meta deck. Sideboard wise, we've got some Stony Silence for artifact decks. We've got Lorien also for artifact decks. More counter magic, some blasts, another back to basics for when it's good, another Narset to mess up decks trying to draw lots of cards. Same with the Bowmasters in the board. Got Lavinia, loads of things that's good against people trying to play 0 mana spells, for example. Another Pest Control for when that's good. And another Sage Extraction again for when that's good. And because we're a Lorien deck, it means we get to then blink our Stoneforge. So we do have a deeper package than we would normally see in a Stoneforge deck. Alright, that's pretty much it. I'm imagining these games to be relatively grindy, so like and subscribe and let's get right into this one. Right, we are into the first round. Our hand is a little bit slow. I don't think we can just keep a hand that doesn't do anything until turn 3. Not in Legacy these days, so we're going to mulligan this one. Okay, this one is okay because of the Lorien Revealed, so we'll keep this and we'll bottom this Archaeomancer. I think that's probably the one that goes here. Or is it the Ephemerate? No, I like the Ephemerate just to get more equipment going. Thundering Falls. That's good. That means we're probably going to get our first Lorien Revealed off, which is certainly handy. We probably have to just get 2 Tundras. They left a card on top with their Thundering Falls. The worst case scenario there was our opponent doing Grief, Reanimate Grief. Oh, this is pretty good. So we can play this out. And I don't think I want to cycle this just yet. I think I'm going to hold on to this. We can open ourselves up to Stifle. But I think holding up potential Spell Pierce against some decks, or, you know, perceived Spell Pierce might be quite important. Right, our opponent's just cycling a Lorien Revealed. Hedge Maze. Right, they're getting a little surveil on. What are you going to find? Siren's Spirit Guide. Okay, so this feels like our opponent's playing some sort of Rhinos deck list. So we're probably not getting Rhino this turn. We can get ourselves a Tundra. Wasteland is a thing our opponent can play. Cryptic Coat. I don't hate that one. Just jam a Stoneforge. This gives us something that can contest and beat Rhinos. If our opponent wants to try and answer the Stoneforge, they're unlikely to be able to... Maybe we just get the Kaldra here. Yeah, if they make Rhinos, they're unlikely to be able to contest our Stoneforge. And if they contest our Stoneforge, they're probably not making Rhinos. So we kind of buy ourselves a little bit of time either way, potentially. Our opponents fetched up a land with their Wooded Foothills. Shardless Agent. Alright. We're going to see their deck, see if there's anything unusual in there. Nope, just everything I was expecting. So Crashing Footfalls, they get themselves a couple of Rhinoceroses. Now we can have a 5/5, but bounce spells are the real deal here. So we're going to use this white mana to put in our Kaldra Compleat, which means we're probably just playing out Underground Sea for now. Make our opponent think about black mana when we don't really have that much, and we're going to use this to cycle our Lorien Revealed. Our opponent can have a multitude of things that deal with the Kaldra Germ, like Brazen Borrower or Fire Ice to tap it down for a turn. Right, so we're going to activate our Kaldra now, or our Stoneforge and put it in the Kaldra. That is definitely better than putting in the coat here. So we could do something like a Spirit Guide and a bounce spell. There is the Petty Theft. So we're going to take 10 this turn and be left with basically nothing. But we do have Pest Controls on our deck, which we can draw to, which should be quite handy here. Dramatically reduce our opponent's clock. We can plough one of these. If we'd have had another white mana, we could have ploughed this turn cycle as well. But let's just cycle this and get ourselves that Tundra we require. So I don't really have time to fool around with playing this Stoneforge right now. And Narset. We could play Narset and dig for another removal spell for next turn. I think that's probably where I want to be. Narset's not great against our opponent's decks. They tend not to draw additional cards that often. So not playing cantrips or anything due to their Cascade Chains. Assimilation Aegis does kill one of their guys. Back to basics. I don't think we can do back to basics stuff just yet. Our opponent runs Force of Negation, so I think we have to plough on our opponent's turn. I'm probably ploughing in the upkeep. Counterspell here and we lose. There's the Force of Will. That's the end of that game. Yeah, our opponent was just doing fast things and we couldn't really contest. So Pest Control seems pretty great here, as does Lavinia. Obviously we only have the one Lavinia, so it's not the most reliable thing. Force of Negation to stop the scary things also makes some amount of sense. Back to basics is a weird one here because our opponent can run Blood Moon in their decks as well. Right, Flusterstorm also seems good to stop their Rhinoceroses. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of Narset in this matchup. Teferi, fantastic. I'll hook that right to my veins. I don't think we need the Surgical in this one. Orim's Chant is weirdly playable here as well. I think our matchup here should be okay. It's a case of, do you actually want this back to basics when our opponent is potentially playing something like a Blood Moon? I'm not sure I'm down for that one. And they don't draw that many additional cards. I don't really like Orcish Bowmasters. We don't really care about that Blood Moon, so we're not going to bring in the Lorien here. I think this is pretty reasonable. You could trim something like a Lion Sash for a back to basics, because this Lion Sash probably isn't doing that much. And if we want a second back to basics, how would we go about fitting that into our deck? The Ephemerates seem kind of slow for what we're trying to do here. I think we'll board out one of these Ephemerates for now and try that. Like, they'll have a bunch of lands that are fine under Blood Moon, but they might not be fine under back to basics is the thing. Okay, we have an answer for Rhino. We have an answer for many Rhinos. Yeah, this seems like a good place to be. And we can play on basics here. I'm not expecting our opponent to turn one Blood Moon. But maybe that's an argument for playing out the Polluted Delta here. I played this out so we can Flusterstorm turn 1. But it does mean that we can't Pest Control until turn 3. So we'll use this and get our 1-of Swamp. Unless we're suddenly in need of getting a white source. I'm not worried about the Rhinos coming down just yet. Right. They're playing on basics as well. Is this a turn they go for the thing? It's just like a Shardless Agent. Sure. So they can Cascade and we can fire off this Mystical Disputes are in. Okay. We'll fire off this Flusterstorm. We'll get 2 copies, so it's going to be very hard for them to use. But they can have things like Seaman Spirit Guide to pay for these. But they would need, obviously, a few of them because there's 3 copies over there. We're not going to crack our Fetch Shadow in turn because we can do Brainstorms and we want to get our basic swamp with it anyway. A Solitude. Right, so let's play our basic planes and we'll pass the turn. I'm not expecting anything like Tishana's Tidebender. That's like the only real Stifle effect they could run in their deck. Because all the other ones would just get hit by their Cascade Chain. So we can take a little bit of damage from this and then hopefully in a couple of turns stabilize by hardcasting a Solitude. But I'm feeling in a pretty solid position here. I don't think we're going to be losing to the Rhino plan. So it's a case of how good is their backup plan. Stoneforge Mystic. Do not mind seeing one of these. This gives us a plan. Our opponent's got a lot of cards in hand, so we could see a counterspell here. Force of Will. Pitching Brazen Borrower. Sure. Again, we can take 2 damage for a few more turns and not really worry about it. We don't want to crack our fetch just yet in case we need it to be a white source. Like if we draw our 5th land and it's not one that taps for white mana, then we're going to have to get white mana off of this just so we can cast our Solitude. Which potentially strands the Pest Control in our hand, but the good thing about Pest Control is you can always cycle it. A Spellseeker. What are we going to do with Spellseeker? Let's cast this. Wouldn't be a bad time for a Surgical Extraction, but we've boarded those out because our opponent's not really a graveyard deck. Mystical Dispute. Sure. I'm not going to pay for that. Right, we've got 8 turns of this guy attacking us before we lose. So that's plenty of time. Worst case scenario, we can always like fire off a March Otherworldly Light or pitch cast a Solitude if we need to. I'm pretty confident we can just play with this Solitude and get the work done. We can find another Spellseeker. So we could crack the Polluted Delta and get our swamp so that we can keep up white mana here. Another Mystical Dispute, sure. Just need to find that white mana source. Or any mana source. So you can always go and get a Tundra. Alright, we took our 2 damage. Now it's over to Assimilation Aegis. I think this is acceptable to cast here. We've got more removal in hand. So this just gives us time to draw that extra land we're looking for. Now we could always go and crack this and get a Meticulous Archive to try and find ourselves that land if we need to. But if we're not under any pressure, I don't think that's a thing we need to immediately start doing. Wood of Foothills. Our opponent's found their 3rd mana source. So this might unlock things like Endurance from their hand. There's a Volcanic. A Shardless Agent. Okay. Alright, we get to see a lot more of our opponent's deck off of this reveal. What is their sideboard plan here? Minsk and Boo. Okay. Sure, you can have a Crashing Footfalls. We have the answer to that in hand. So it feels like we're grabbing our swamp very soon. It's bigger so I can click on the correct one, shall we? That's Pest Control. That's certainly a Force of Willable target right there. Just a nice clean answer to Rhinoceroses. If that didn't work, we could always start Prismatic Ending and March of Otherworldly Lighting whatever is left over. But they've still got a 2-2 to be down with. Crashing Footfalls on Suspend. Okay. We do have that covered by what's in our hand. Alright. We're going to be putting Yor into hand this turn. A Counterspell. I think it's worth holding that up rather than putting the Yor into hand. I think we might have missed an opportunity to put the Yor into hand earlier. Petty Theft. This is an interesting one because we can Counterspell this and it cuts them off of effectively 2 things. I think that's worth doing here. If this is bait to put Minsk and Boo into play, then, well, I guess you got me. But we got a few turns on this Crashing Footfalls where we have to be too worried. Or maybe it's just one of those games where you just get beaten down by this Shadow's Agent. Again, we do have the removal spell for it, and we might be incentivized to fire that off in a second. A Flooded Strand. Alright, now we are where we want to be. Crack this and get another Plains. And then we'll Solitude in our opponent's turn. See if we can get them to tap their mana for anything first. Also, we don't just want to do it immediately and our opponent plays Minsk and Boo, because that ends very poorly for us. Force of Vigor. Pitch the Minsk and Boo from their hand. Now either means they got a second one, or they think this is where they need to be. A Brazen Borrower. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand, so this is the time to cast a Solitude, I think. We'll take out the Brazen Borrower, we can trade with the Shadow's Agent. And maybe we'll find something resembling stability soon. Doesn't feel like we're too far away from it. This might be the last Crashing Footfalls in their deck. The Sheltered Endurance. A Pyrokinesis. Let's see an Endurance in there. I suppose we're going to lose our Solitude. This will put us to 2. And next turn, we will hopefully be able to Solitude, kill one of their guys, block their other guy, gain 3. I think it's best to do this on attacks. As we could get blown out if they have a hard cast Mystical Dispute here. Oh, they just have a lethal spell to the face, yeah? Yeah, our deck just was always behind. And we just didn't have the win conditions to take over the game, to put the bodies into play. And our opponent just had some pretty good cards. Yeah. I'm surprised we lost that one, that game, but we did take quite a lot of damage from the Shadow's Agents. Alright, let's go to round 2. Alright, we're on the play for round number 2. We've got a pretty reasonable hand here. I'm going to keep this one. Maybe we get to blow our opponent out with special graveyard hate that they're not expecting. But I'm going to play this, and I'm going to crack it around potential stifle, because there's no reason not to, considering how we're going to play this hand out. We may as well get that extra bit of security. Just going to leave my companion card out here, just so we don't forget it. Right, our opponent's played a mountain into Goblin Lackey, a classic start. Are we going to allow this because our Stoneforge Mystic blocks it? I think so. And because we have a Force of Will, I suppose we could get punished if they play exactly Cavern of Souls into... If they play exactly Cavern of Souls into the red-black guy that shoots down creatures. That would certainly wreck our day. I'm going to get the Batterskull here. So we can attack and block with the Batterskull. So we could be getting hit by that. But if it's anything other than a Cavern, would be okay. I think they play the Cavern with the Lackey. Okay, yep, so we should be fine this turn. They can't cycle a Golden Pyromancer here. Yep, so this is the exact thing that I was mentioning. We will pitch this Force of Negation. I don't think that's going to be a particularly useful card. And now their 1-1 is very unlikely to attack into our 1-2. Am I going to Brainstorm to get that additional land here? If we mess up, then we're in trouble, but we do need to keep making land drops. I believe that we're going to find a land in the top 3 cards of our deck. Oh lord, we did not. Oh no, that's terrible news. Yikes, well, we can't cast the counterspells that can go on top. We can't cast the Aegis. Well, we can put the Aegis in, so I guess we'll put that second top. On the top, sorry. Okay, that's not great, but we have the Swords to Plowshares, which can buy us a little bit of grace. Like, our hand should be able to get there. We just need to be able to deploy all our resources. And Swords to Plowshares and eventually Snapcaster Mage is going to be very handy here. What is this? A Goblin Matron. We cannot counterspell that. Let's see what our opponent is going for here. Muxus. That's a very scary creature. So we know the top card of our library. Are we just going to hit this Lackey right now just so we can be efficient with our mana? I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to do if we want to put this Batterskull in. So we have this Assimilation Aegis if we need it, as well as the Batterskull. So even though our next draw is a blank counterspell right now, it's not the end of the world. 4 mana over there. 4 mana. A Sling Gang Lieutenant. Sacrifice Goblin, drain life for 1. Do I want this to be a thing that happens? Or do I want to just put the Aegis in right now? I don't think we have to do that. So the Batterskull is going to struggle to gain lifelink, but it will still devour their stuff along the way. Then we could have put in the Aegis and taken this out with the trigger on the stack. But we can just do that next turn before they go to blocks. And it'll be more of a blowout. Okay, if they've got a soul land and they can dump this Muxus into play, and that will probably win the game. And that Brainstorm lock was pretty savage for us. But we've got a lot of cards we can do stuff with. If we find another land, we can just start Snapcaster Plow and pulling ahead that way. Finding another blue source so we can at least counterspell this Muxus would be very important. A Goblin Bombardiers. Not a particular fan of that one, but it resolves. Okay, so we are going to activate this. Put in the Assimilation Aegis. I would like to get rid of this Bombardiers, because that is a scary card. They're probably just going to sack it to the Sling Gang Lieutenant and drain life for 1. Because otherwise we can put that on the Phyrexian Germ token. And that becomes pretty interesting. I'm probably going to attack here and sack to get some stuff going. We should have attacked last turn, actually. Okay, so you found the land. I feel a lot safer now. Start gaining some life back, or making them sack goblins. So we can Snapcaster Plow this Sling Gang Lieutenant, but we need to wait for this Muxus to come down, because we need to hold the counterspell for that. A Skirk Prospect. That gives them the ability to play the Muxus right now. A Cavern of Souls. That is a disaster. Yeah, they must have been sandbagging this cavern. What is our solution to this problem? I think we go and fetch ourselves an island here. We cast the Snapcaster Mage. And we plow this Sling Gang Lieutenant. Because they're going to get a bunch of goblins. We don't want our opponent to be able to sack them all. Alright, Muxus, how scary are you going to be today? Oh, that's a lot of guys. How do we beat this? So we lose our Batterskull, we lose our Stoneforge Mystic. We're left with a 1/1 that blocks the Muxus, but then we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What can we actually draw to get back into this game? I think we're just dead. As is normally the case when Muxus gets you. Alright, we got rumbled pretty hard there. So what would I like? I would very much like some Hydroblasts. I think that's a good start. This is not looking like a Social Extraction matchup. The Orim's Chant doesn't look great here. It's fine, but not great. Back to Basics might randomly come up here and allow us to stop Muxus being a thing altogether, so I'm not opposed to that. I'm not really sure this is the Force of Negation matchup either, so if we strip those out, that gets us to a clean 80. Pest Control can kill a bunch of tokens and Ether Vial, so I think I would like this in. This is not really the matchup for Narset, but it can help us dig to find answers, so I don't mind having the one in there. Lavinia's not really doing anything because it's non-creature spells in terms of the number of lands, and they're not going to be casting spells without paying mana because they just come straight into play. We could have like a Lorien of the Third Path, just as a thing that attacks and gets rid of Ether Vials, because I'm pretty sure our opponent is an Ether Vial player. So we could try that. We could play Orcish Bowmaster if we're on the play because it kills Goblin Lackey. I don't hate that either. I think that's probably better than a Lion Sash, and probably better than... Orim's Chant can buy us a turn sometimes, but I don't think that's what this game is about. Try and get rid of the Chant here. Right, we have a removal spell. We have a win condition. We have this Flusterstorm that I probably should have sideboarded out as well. I'll drop this Meticulous Archive. This is a removal spell. It's not the nicest removal spell I've ever seen, but I'll take it. The Karakas can obviously bounce a Muxus, but that's not really what you want to do. Scoring Tarn into nothing. Right, let's just get our Stoneforge in. Something like a Jitte would be nice, but I guess we don't necessarily have the bodies to equip to either. I think I want the Batterskull again. Just pad our life total as best we can, and this is one we can reasonably cast if they have that little goblin that shoots you. Our opponent is a very accomplished Goblins player, and I am not a very good Stoneblade player, so the odds are stacked against us. Alright, we got a Battlecry Goblin out of him for that Pyrokinesis. Rishadan Port. Okay. Sure, no white mana for us. I'll play this Flooded Strand. This can give us access to white mana for all these white cards in our hand. There's an argument about whether or not we should fetch a black source. I think having an unwastelandable white source might be really handy against our opponent's Port Wasteland deck. There's a Wasteland. Goodbye, our land. Tap down our island, I assume. Orcish Bowmasters. That has some play to it. That definitely incentivizes us to go and get some black mana. Our opponent might just be on like a slow, develop their own mana whilst restricting ours, and then eventually just cavern out Muxus. And we don't really have a good answer for that. There's no like called Grafdigger's Cage type action. What are we going to tap down? Our white source or our blue source? They're going for the blue source. Alright, now we don't need to fetch a black source. That's very nice. I would rather hold up these plows and bowmasters than put your own into hand right now. Does our opponent have a Raucous Theatre in their deck? They do not. That's not unsurprising given the nature of the Goblin's deck. Wants to make sure its lands come on tap and just curve out. There is a Wasteland. Alright, we'll float a white mana. Goodbye Island. Should keep staring at each other for a while, I suppose. I'm finding it a little bit hard to make the correct number of land drops. Now we got Brainstorm locked in the first game here, and then the first round we had the delay on the Solitude for a few turns, which might have ended up costing us the entire game. Lorien Revealed. Well, Island Cycle. Again, I think we are just on basics here. Our white mana is definitely going to be the one they want to tap down when the time comes, I think, because that's all our removal colours. But this is just going to be our opponent staring us down for ages. Right, so we're going to clean this up using the Orcish Bowmasters, probably in response to the Rishadan Port. Yes, we'll put a clock on the board for us. I guess we are going to start attacking our opponent next turn. Munitions Expert. This is going to kill our Bowmasters, probably. We honestly don't really care about that. We could plough the Munitions Expert in response. Really going to get us where we need to be. But our opponent can just play this game slowly until they Muxus. We don't really have an answer to this one, do we? But they've already got quite a lot of mana. It's more about the giving their guys flash thing that is actually the concern for us. Like they can just build that up to 6 and put the Muxus in, or they can wait until they have a cavern. Whichever comes first. Spellseeker does not have flash, so we can't just flash that in and do stuff. How much do I want to discard a card here? How much do I want to just Spellseeker? I think I want a Spellseeker. Is that true? No, I think I'd rather Cryptic Coat here. Snow-covered plains. This gives us a creature we can attack with. So we can use our Spellseeker to get a Pest Control going at some point. But our opponent can break that up if they see it coming because of their Ristan Port. 4 mana. A Sling Gang Lieutenant. It's a pretty good one. Like, we do have answers. That's not what we're lacking. I think they're going to tap down our plains and then we use that to just shoot the Sling Gang Lieutenant. Oh, they're tapping down the swamp. Sure, that's not the one I care about, so that's cool. Let's plow this Sling Gang Lieutenant. Yup. I don't think we're attacking here. I think we need to preserve our lifesteal a bit. Although they've only got 1 card in hand. This is an activation that's not going to put anything in. Oh, they did put a thing in. Oh, interesting. Okay, so our opponent's hellbent, so maybe we should be on the attacking phase soon. If we can find another white source, we might be able to drop a Solitude. If we can find an Ephemerate, we can do some pretty gross things with it. I would very much like to Spellseeker into Pest Control. Put this in for 2. What is this? Battlecry Goblin? That would be pretty savage, yeah. Munitions Expert. We can target our ward creature. Yep. That's the thing they're allowed to do. So we can pick this up for 2 mana, right? Yep. I'll trade off with a Lackey. The Lackey doesn't really do anything here anyway, but it could end up, like, if they have like a ringleader, then attack, it can get them some value. Right, let's have our coat back. This is like recurring blockers for their guys. Alright, they're really worried about our Orcish Bowmasters potentially. A Hydroblast. That's a very powerful card to keep up. They might be worried about the Pest Control, which is why they're getting rid of this. I just need more lands. That's kind of the problem. Alright, I'm going to take a chance here. And Spellseeker, getting ourselves a Brainstorm to try and fix our hand. I would like this Pest Control. But are we realistically able to cast it into our opponent's Ristan Port? Very unlikely. Whereas a Brainstorm lets us try and find some answers. We're going to get rid of this Flusterstorm because this shouldn't even be in our deck and we should have brought it out. Oh, we've got to get rid of 2 cards now, haven't we? Is it the Kaldra? It probably is the Kaldra. Or is it the Aegis? I think it's the Kaldra. Now we can trade our Spellseeker off with a Munitions Expert. This makes Ephemerate worse as a draw. But just getting the recurring damage off the board is really handy. A Goblin Lackey, sure. That's not what I'm worried about right now. I think we're about to get Brainstorm locked. I feel it in my very soul. That's Brainstorm. 2 lands. These are things I actively want in my hand. I don't think we want the Aegis anymore. And I'm not sure if this game is about this back to basics or not. You can definitely shut our opponent off of this, off of quite a lot of stuff. But I don't think that's better than any other cards. So let's grab this. We want another plane, so we'll play this Marsh Flats. So we can Cryptic Coat now and just have a guy. That seems reasonable to me. This is shields down on Muxus for a turn. We'll plow onto that. It's not really where we want that plow. But our opponent is just top decking and they don't have any cantrips to fix or anything. They could draw Matron into Muxus. I think from here on out we've got to respect the Muxus off the top with these Hydroblasts. Back to basics. I do like the back to basics here, as funny as that is. That unlocks our swamp. So we go and get ourselves this, I would say. And keep 1 of each so we can Hydroblast and plow. I don't think we attack here, but this is going to unlock all of our mana now. So our opponent's not going to be able to Ristan Port anymore. I think this Aetherval is then going to start ticking towards 6. No? Keep it on 3. Is that so they can Matron and cast Muxus, I would imagine. And return this Cryptic Coat. Just start making an army of 2/2s. A Pyroblast on the Cryptic Coat. Sure. Land would be nice here. A Force of Will. Okay, I don't hate a Force of Will. We could just attack with our 2/2 and see if we can trade some stuff and then get a blowout with a Solitude. I don't think that's necessary right now. And maybe we're playing this one too slowly. But I want to have a land so I can just play Batterskull and hold up Pyroblast. A Skirk Prospect. That's fun. I think I am just playing this Solitude here. I think we take out the Munitions Expert here. Reason being, this makes Pest Control way better for us. Now we can attack with the Cloak and we can block one of these. I don't think I need to do that just yet. We can hold up this hard cast Force of Will. And we can also Brainstorm in response to something if we feel the need. Feels like we should be able to win this one. We've also got the Yorion chilling. We can go and reach for soon. Right, we're just doing end of turn Brainstorm here. Still holding up this Force. Okay, this is the sort of things we want. Do we need a Prismatic Ending right now? Probably not. Do we need the land actually? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. We hold up Pyroblast. Hydroblast, sorry. We're going to attack with our Cloak. It's about to die because it's got no mana cost, so it's going to get hit by our Pest Control. Cast Spellseeker, 1, 2, 3. Cast this Pest Control. Blows up all of this and the Vial. Alright, and then next turn we can play a Batterskull, hold up Hydroblast, and we've still got these Force of Wills. This game should be won. We just need to actually get the life total down to 0. Let's just get rid of this. Card too good. It's not great on this board, but it can certainly turn things around in short order. Happy to see that one. Let's go attacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can go get Tundra if we need to. Don't think we've got any more planes. I could be wrong. We should port. If they would like one go with the port. You don't need to do anything. Our hand's good. Opponent needs to have a pretty amazing turn through an awful lot of interaction on our side. Alright, we tied the match up. Bit of a slog. Let's get this Flusterstorm right out though. That seems pretty bad. What is better than a Flusterstorm? I guess we can use Lavinia to stop Pyrokinesis. It's also just a 2-2, which is fine against a lot of 1-1s, because this is like Vile Goblins, because Turbo Muxus isn't a thing anymore because they banned the Sticker Goblin. So yeah, I like having just a 2-mana 2-2. I'll take a Grizzly Bear in this matchup over a Flusterstorm for sure. This hand will just see us run over, so we have to mug on this. This has a Swords in. I'll keep this one. What are we putting back here? I'm not big into Teferi. It does cantrip, but I think we're going to put that back and just try and leverage Snapcaster, Plow, and then we can Ephemerate the Snapcaster, maybe Plow a bit more. And Richard Port, you say? And an Ether Vial. Sure, just all the fun right in our face there. I think we're just playing a Tundra and then cycling for a Tundra. I don't think we can afford to play around Wasteland. But if our opponent shows us one, then we can. Not a big fan of how this is going. Let's get our island. Cycle this. We could get a Tundra to access our white spells. Or we could just go and get... I think I have to get the Tundra. I hate this so much. Into the onboard Wasteland. We don't have to play this out right now. Unless we want to kill this Ether Vial. I'll play out this Swamp. Because that makes draws of Pest Control castable. A Goblin Lackey. Yeah, that's pretty bad. We're just going to get Muxus right away. In comes a Lackey. It's been a long time since I've been hit by a Goblin Lackey. Let's see the damage. Is it Muxus? Just a War Chief. Okay. That could have been a whole lot worse for us. Yep. Goodbye, Swamp. So, how important is ploughing this War Chief? Looks pretty important. Is it more important than March of Otherworldly lighting the Ether Vial, though? I think if we take out the Ether Vial when our opponent isn't playing red mana sources, that might be what we need to do. That's a lot of damage. That's 6 damage a turn. And our Tundra is going to get splattered by the Wasteland. And then we either draw a white source next turn or we lose. As simple as that. What fresh hell is this going to be? A Battlecry Goblin. Okay, so any red source kills us next turn. I did not Wasteland our Tundra. Alright, we will plow this. This guy represents 1, 2, 3, 4 damage. This guy represents 1, 2, 3, 4 damage. 5 damage. This guy represents 3, 4, potentially a bunch more. That's not an easy choice, is it? I guess we take out the Battlecry Goblin. A Kaldra Compleat. Let's get a Spellseeker going. What are we finding here? If we... I think we get Hydroblast, right? That's just a solid answer. Allows us to play with the Snapcaster. That seems fine. We can try and trade this guy off into the Horde Master, or at least stop it from attacking this turn. This doesn't bode amazingly for us. Let's just hope that this lackey's not going to ruin our day. They haven't put anything too scary in. There's a Muxus on top of the in the exile zone. I can't play that because I don't have the mana for it. Another Horde Master. Okay. They're really not wastelanding us. That is kind of incredible. So this is Hydroblast on Horde Master, I think. And then we can ambush them in combat with a Snapcaster Mage. Which I think we have to... I think we have to plow... Sorry, not plow. I think we have to Hydroblast the Lackey and trade with the War Chief. Will give us some amount of stability. So Hydroblast. Got to block first. And then we'll Hydroblast the Lackey down. And if our opponent doesn't have red mana, this will basically mean our opponent doesn't get to play the game anymore. So they might just try and spy us by hitting this Tundra. Yeah, I thought that might happen. An Ether Vial. Alright, that's something we're going to have to deal with. Lorien Revealed. That is our only blue card, is the problem for this Force of Will. Do I think this game is going to be about us having... just trying to think. If we... I will cycle this. And I will get a Meticulous Archive, I think. I'll play this and try and get a little bit of selection. Solitude. If we draw that next turn, then what? I think we need something bigger than that. Like, that can stem the tide slightly. But we need another land. We need to put Yorion or something into play. I think that's where I'm aiming. Flooded Strand. So now we have a blue card for Force of Will if we need it. Otherwise, we can just make Yorion and start jamming at our opponent. But this Ether Vial will eventually put a Muxus in at some point if we give our opponent enough time, and that will be the end of the game. I think we'll get another Meticulous Archive here. Right, I'm happy to draw that now. I've got 5 mana. So I think we can just hold up the Solitude, kill the first thing that comes out, and then we can just Ephemerate Solitude a bunch when we need to. A War Marshal. It's almost not worth doing anything to, is it? Alright. They're not going to be paying for this War Marshal, that's for sure. Then we're just going to gobble this so we can at least start attacking with something. Take out their 1-1 that's back. And then try and gain 3 life off of this. It's a good sign. We can hold up Force of Will or Ephemerate. Start poking and make ourselves a little healthier. Anything we need to Brainstorm, we can just hold up Hardcast Force of Will if our opponent does find a land and they want to do anything with it. A Goblin Matron. Broadside Bombardiers. Just Ephemerate our Solitude. First Bombardiers. Our opponent go to their turn there. Again, step off, fire this Brainstorm off, just in case we find like something we want to flash in right now. Don't need this just yet. Draw the land. Sure. Maybe we could throw away the Force of Will here. I don't think it's worth doing that now. Just go to attacks. Let's get Batterskull in. This can give us a little bit more pressure. We've got 1 Tundra we can go and fetch. But if we don't need to, we don't need to. We also can Ephemerate here. Blink our Solitude. It's more important to get our opponent's life total down than it was just to clear that Goblin Matron out of the way. That's certainly a thing that could change down the line, but we'll see. This is a Ringleader. A Twin Shot Sniper. Alright, let's get that Tundra. We get Snow Covered Plains here, actually. Let's just Ephemerate this. Kill the Twin Shot Sniper. Another Ether Vial, sure. We don't care about the second one. I will just blink the Solitude now. Just get this out of the way. This secures us 4 damage this turn. Right, let's just nail that. We've got a Force of Will. I don't think we're going to use it. We're just going to be using our Yorion if our opponent puts anything in. Maybe we should have played the Yorion there just to speed up our clock. We only got 3 minutes. Opponent found a red mana source though. Let's crash with these. Let's bounce this Vial. Oh, I did have a Lackey. Spellseeker. Right, we can fire that off next turn if we need to. The problem with Pest Control is it does make our Germ token die. It's not the end of the world, but it's a real thing. So Pyrokinesis is something we can cover here. Probably best off just getting Hydroblast. Do I care enough about this? I don't think so. Broadside Bombardiers, sure. But we're going to be Force of Willing unless we just go and get the Hydroblast. I think we've got enough time to win this one. Our opponent is rather love a human. They said GG at the end, and they're just saying, you know, good job for getting the Daybreak count and stuff. So, all right, so we've put a match win on the board. Lots of white removal. We're a little bit slow closing the game, and our opponent had to brick for quite a while, but we did get there. Let's go to round 3. Alright, we are into the third round. We have double Meticulous Archive, which is a little bit slow. We've got some counterspells to keep us alive and some more mana. I think this is acceptable. We're going to be looking to surveil our way into our action. Like, we can't mulligan to try and find action because there's so little of it in our deck. It's not really what our deck is about. We will begin on a Meticulous Archive just so we can get that sweet surveil action. I think we need another land here. We'll put that one away. We're looking for a bit more business. A Gemstone Mine. Dredge, perhaps? Or Turbo Depths? That would be my first two thoughts. Chrome Mox. Not sure what we're playing against now. Echo of Eons. Alright, some kind of rainbow wonderfulness. Might of Flame. I'm just going to see Galvanic Relay. A Song of Creation. That can get right out of here. I think the Force of Will is going to be useful in this matchup, so we're going to fire off this Lorien Revealed into the Force of Negation because we already have our next two land drops sorted. If we can find another blue card at all, this becomes useful again. So with some sort of Rainbow Storm deck, that would be my impression from what you've seen so far. We get to make our opponent have a real bad time now because we will remove their Chrome Mox from play. And then we'll Meticulous Archive. We are shields down this turn, but our opponent's got one card in hand and one land. I think this is reasonable. I think we'll put it on top. It's a blue card. Sometimes we might actually want it to ferry. But I think we're likely just to play the Lion Sash and just start beating down whilst holding up Force of Will. And then if we find something else, and like another blue card, we can play our Teferi, cash in for a card. Just eat their Lotus Petal now. I'd like to see a little bit more of what's going on in our opponent's deck. I think Mox Opal is where we're fighting here. Snow Covered Island. So we have Flooded Strand. This increases our clock by 1 because permanent cards make it grow. And we bash for 3. We're still holding up Force of Will. If we find another land, we can hold up Force of Will with Hardcast mode. We just empty our opponent's graveyard, especially since Right Flame actually cares about being in the graveyard. Ephemerate. That's not very useful here. We just on attack mode and hope that our Force of Will can protect us when the time comes. Right Flame. Just going to get them less mana now. A Lion's Eye Diamond. Sure. A Gamble. So I think we're just going to fight over the Echo. Looks like what our opponent is up to here. Yep, there it is. We don't get any window to interact with this other than on the stack here. We don't get to remove it using our Lion Sash. We'll exile their Mox Opal. Exile their Lion's Eye Diamond. That grows our creature again. And then we'll also use our mana to exile that Rite of Flame. So my decision to keep the Force of Will earlier has played out nicely. But it was pretty obvious that was going to be the correct play to make there. Blue, blue, white. Let's see if we can dig up something else that's helpful here. This card bricks their deck quite hard, I imagine. Right, Pest Control certainly has some text here. So do the Bowmasters, the Lavinia, and the Narset. The Force, the Fluster. These all seem pretty good. Stony Silence also seems like an absolute banger in this matchup. What do I not like the look of? Assimilation Aegis doesn't seem like it's useful. Back to Basics doesn't seem great. Counterspell, Surgical's fine. I don't think we're going to be trying to plow many things in this matchup. I keep the Solitudes in because they are a win condition. We can assemble an Ephemerate lock with the Archaeomancer. And I'd like to try and do that at least once this league, so we're going to leave that in. Lion Sash is fine. I don't think we need the Batterskull, but the Kaldra is good. And then where we trim in Teferi is pretty handy. It's also a blue card. Cryptic Coat is fine. We do need pressure. We can't just keep boarding out everything. We will need to keep some amount of pressure in our deck. Pendings and the March Flats like can blow up stuff if they play them out. Maybe the Archaeomancer's too cute, but that does feel like a lock on this game if we can just keep recycling. If we can Ephemerate Archaeomancer and get a bunch of permission back in hand. So I do think this is a matchup where that's going to look good. Am I cutting another equipment? I guess Lion Sash probably has more text than Cryptic Coat, so we drop a Cryptic. Maybe it's a Teferi. Or maybe it is just a Solitude and we just have to go down on threats. I do want to have some amount of threats here. Because we are so light on threats in this deck. I guess we do have always the Yorion we can reach for. Okay, let's have a Cryptic Coat instead of the Solitude. Alright, I will try this one out. Cryptic Coat pitches the counter spells. Let's reveal our Lorien. Orim's Chant and Force of Negation. These are both pretty exciting cards for this matchup, I would say. Orim's Chant is basically a counterspell against Beseech the Mirror. It's pretty exciting. I think we can certainly have a stab at winning the game with this one. Orim's Chant into Snapcaster Orim's Chant is pretty annoying. Means you're probably pitching the Teferi to the Force, but our opponent can definitely have things like the Fence Grid in their deck. You can see a Thoughtseize here. They're going to have a look. If they can go this turn, they'll take the Force of Negation. Otherwise, it becomes a trickier proposition. Playing around Orim's Chant as a Storm deck is a bit annoying. Okay, they just took the Force and then passed. So we get to jam our planes. So we're holding up the Orim's Chant. We're not just going to fire it off willy-nilly. We sort of fire it off in response to some stuff. So we're getting a few cards for it. A gamble. We just want to draw lands here more than anything else. Because the Spellseekers can find us whatever tools we think we want. There's an Echo of Eons in the graveyard. A Lion's Eye Diamond. Sure. Like if they wheel this turn, then we just Orim's Chant and they won't be able to kill us. But it will still be just a fresh wash on the game. We're both looking at fresh 7s. A Chrome Mox. Yep. That's pretty good. They're going to at least have the resources out of their hand when they reset. So this is going to be a fine reset for them. It seems unlikely that we're going to have a better hand than we have now. Chain of Vapor our opponent's boarded in. We could just draw a Lavinia though, and that's pretty savage. Echo of Eons. We will do the obvious play of the Orim's Chant. But our opponent just gets to gas up again. We did not draw the Lavinia. We can blow up their Chrome Mox if we want to. But that would come at the cost of our Orim's Chant, which I would very much like to keep as an active thing we get to use. We'll play this one out and pass. If we can sort of stop our opponent mid-roll with an Orim's Chant and then drop a Narset, we can shut off any Echo of Eons after that. Also shuts off the little enchantment, 4-mana Song of Creation. A Dark Ritual. It's going to be a Beseech the Mirror. You can resolve your Beseech the Mirror. What are you going to put on the stack? A Defense Grid. I will respond with an Orim's Chant. So I could have done that in response to the Beseech the Mirror, but then they just get something different. Can they still put it to their hand? Is the spell's bargain, you may cast it. Yeah, so all they'll do is they'll find something and put it into their hand. Right, so we need to get blue mana here. Probably getting Underground Sea. Just so we have access to black for Pest Control in a bit. So playing the Narset and trying to dig into a Force effect. I will take a Force of Negation here. Now, we don't get to use this Force of Negation immediately because of the defense grid, but we can untap and hold up the mana for it. But our opponent's main engines are both shut off. They can do like Beseech the Mirror Chains. But if they sacrifice their defense grid as their artifact, then all of a sudden our Force of Negation is turned on and our opponent's in trouble again. A Dark Ritual. A Chain of Vapor on the Narset. Okay. We could sacrifice a land to bounce the defense grid, which I think we have to do here. Now, this might just be generating Storm for our opponent. Lands a diamond, we're getting a new 7. If we get a new 7, we at least get interaction. Yeah, it feels like we're going for a new 7. So we're going to have access to potentially some more counterspells. Our opponent doesn't really have any additional resources from doing this. Okay. This hand is going to be pretty hard to beat. City of Brass, tapping, doing damage. A Thoughtseize. Take a look. It's pretty good. Triple Force. And 3 blue cards to go with it. I think our opponent can feel pretty unfortunate about that wheel. To the Force of Negation because that can just remove a front-sided Echo. Makes sense. Also, if we take 1 more point of damage, they require 1 less Storm for a Tendrils kill. A Marsh Flats. Right, let's just Spellseeker here. This does get us a clock in play, and our opponent has spent a reasonable amount of damage here. Hitting themselves. I think we just want the... Is it the Flusterstorm or the Orim's Chant? They're both pretty good. I think I like the Flusterstorm because it's a blue card right now. We could get the Ephemerate and just do that whole chain. But this way we can leave the Archaeomancer and then use that to pick up another force next turn. And if our opponent, if we draw any blue card, so we can go force, untap, Archaeomancer, get back a force and have that for the next turn. And our opponent's mana is very painful over there. You don't see Rainbow Lands in Storm very often, it's interesting. A Thought Seize. They can't take us off of all of our forces. Took one of them though. Tapping a Sea of Brass for a white mana. Is this going to be an orange Chant? Or is this just because the white is the top one when you click it on a Rainbow Land? A defense grid. We do have to fight the defense grid. Otherwise, we don't get to fight anything again. We're going to see another wheel. Could just wheel us into like triple force again, please. Our opponent's definitely running out of turns to use their mana base though. Burning Wish, we don't really have any response. Yeah, so now we're in a situation where because we've got this Flusterstorm, even if we don't draw a blue card, we can still Archaeomancer and put force back in our hand. Beseech the Mirror is what they've gone for. So we draw. Is our Flusterstorm good enough here? I think we do put the Archaeomancer into play. Just as a hard counter. And it's probably the Force of Negation, so we can hit a front-sided Echo if that's the thing we're caring about. We've got a 2-turn clock, but if our opponent taps 2 of their non-Gemstone Mine lands, so they put a Beseech the Mirror on the stack, they could die. They have to use a Gemstone Mine and 3 mana Confluence. They can use City of Brass and then try and respond to the trigger if they have instants, but that's not a great recipe for given that most of their stuff is sorcery. Yep, so we won the match. Counterspells, basically. We didn't really have much in the way of threats, which is not really what our deck's about, but we were quite fortunate with one of the wheels where it hit us into a bunch of counterspells. Alright, let's go to round 4. Our opponent is Faltered Form. We've played some of their decks on the channel before. I think this is acceptable, given what our deck is. We played some of the decks on the channel. They tend to play more combo-y type stuff. So, oops all spells, and that sort of jazz. Knowing that, that makes me want to play a Tundra and hold up this Flusterstorm. Now our opponent's pivoted into a non-combo deck. Alright, turn Timbersim. This does look like oops all spells, which is not exactly where I want to be. If we play out this Marsh Flats, this gives us the ability to March for Otherworldly Light a Chromox in response to their imprint trigger, which could really ruin them. The Oops All Spells deck is going to become very strong soon as well with the more of these sorts of lands, because they're going to have new black untapped land. New black land that comes in untapped that isn't a land. A Thought Seize, you say? I will Flusterstorm this. I'll get Meticulous Archive given the chance. Okay. So, Meticulous Archive. Put this into the graveyard. Prismatic Ending. That's not really what we're after. Pest Control is very unlikely to be useful. So we get rid of that one. We can cycle Lorien Revealed. We can hold over March of Otherworldly Light. That's like pretty much all we get to do here. We don't have the most amount of graveyard hate, so I'm a little bit worried about that one. Okay. It's a spirit guide, so we don't actually get to interact with this the way we want to. If they were playing a land, a source out, like a Chromox or something, we would have had a chance to interact with it, but we just don't here. We don't have enough white cards to do this, do we? Because we can prismatically end... Let's just have a look at our opponent's list here. So we can Solitude this Narcomoeba. Is the card in our opponent's hand the... It is, right? I can't see a Thassa's Oracle in here. Alright, we can actually do this now. Because they need to Cabal Therapy themselves. I don't think... Unless I've completely missed something, I don't think there's a... Oh, the Thassa's Oracle is there, isn't it? We're 1 mana shy. This Meticulous Archive coming untapped is going to cost us because we don't get to kill the Narcomoeba. Oh dear. Yeah. Coming to play tap land did us there. Okay, so Lavinia is obviously excellent here, as is the Surgical. Flusterstorm is fine. But you basically just have to bring in anything that can interact with your opponent in this matchup. Otherwise, you're just going to get toasted pretty hard. Pest Control isn't really what I'm about here. Don't need plows. Back to Basics can sometimes do some things, but I'm not really interested in it that much. Lorien of the third path, if they have to play stuff out, can do some work, and it beats down, which is not nothing. Also, it has the you and target opponent draw a card mode, so you can make them draw a card in response and win the game. Let's just have a little check. Ephemerates to blink some of our scary things, sure. Gain stuff. We want Stoneforge, we can actually win the game potentially. Just a case of, do we want any sort of pest control, or do we want some more? Do we actually want some plows in case they have to two-step their guy? Is that how we're actually going to attempt this game? We don't really need the Batterskull. Is Solitude better than Plow here? It is a creature, but 5 mana is so much mana. We're unlikely to have 5 mana. Alright. Maybe we'll have these Plows. This hand has 1 piece of interaction. But we're a deck with a whole bunch of cards, so mulliganing is unlikely to get that much better. Then we just have to keep it. This matchup feels horrible, to be honest. We do have interaction, but having our big things that we need to actually beat, you need dedicated hate to beat this deck. And the problem is we don't have that dedicated hate in very large numbers in a 60 card, in an 80 card deck. Let's get this Meticulous Archive down. No, thank you for that land. So we're pretty cold to a bunch of stuff here. And our opponent kept 6, which is normally a pretty good indication that they're going to just bop you pretty hard. And our opponent is one of the best. A Summoner's Pact. Okay. Our opponent is one of the best Oopsal spells players I've ever seen, so let's hope that we can win by hitting this. Alright. Yeah, our opponent had protection for turn 1. Like, they have to go for it because of the Summoner's Pact. There's no point trying to play games around them. Yeah. Got absolutely smashed there. I don't think a Yorin deck is a very good option into Oopsal spells. And given Modern Horizons on the horizon, with 4 new come into play untapped black lands for this deck, which is kind of the big weakness of the deck when I've played it, is you don't have as much black mana as you'd like. And that's why you have to run these Summoner's Pact Wild Cantor nonsense. Just sort of getting rid of that means that this deck is just going to be a lot better. Although, there's also another card that got spoiled today. It's like 1 mana cards that you don't spend mana on get countered for both players. That, which is going to pretty much break Legacy in half, I think. But anyway, moving on. Let's go to round 5. We are currently 2-2, so we're trying to fight for a positive record. Our hand here is not very exciting, but we do have Narset, which is a very powerful card in the meta right now. We do have some removal. I think this is keepable, but I'm just not liking a lot of the hands we have available to keep in this deck. We don't have any stuff that puts us on the front foot, really. We're always feeling like we're going to be playing from behind due to the configuration of this deck. Meticulous Archive. I don't really want to get wastelanded if our opponent's playing Delver, so I'm going to play this Flooded Strand instead. So we can plow around days if we need to. Ponder. We're not fighting over that with a Flusterstorm. Nothing else from our opponent. Is this a time where we go and grab a Meticulous Archive? I think it is. Our opponent hasn't put any pressure in play. Spin that off. Alright, so we have Brainstorm, Fetch Land, locked and loaded. Our opponent hasn't shown us black mana yet. Green mana. Up the Beanstalk, you say. Not a big fan of Up the Beanstalk. Let's Brainstorm. Okay, we're not really going to need this Solitude or this Meticulous Archive for a while. I think we Force of Negation, pitch Force of Will here. If they fight, we have a Flusterstorm. Alright, I would like that Meticulous Archive in play, I think. I guess we have a Narset, but it's just much safer to... Yeah, I like the Spellseeker. I think it's just much safer to have this Narset around Flusterstorm and not let them just start running away with their Brainstorm. Yeah, I don't want our opponent to run away with the Beanstalk if we can't stick our Narset. I think we get this Underground Sea. And I think I will cast this. Get the Spellseeker going. It's definitely one that is worth counterspelling a lot of the time. A Daze. That is unusual. Our opponent might be on the sort of Rug Delver with that new card that's like something of the Storm. I played it on the channel the first week I think the Outlaws was legal. Could be playing that. I want you to have lots of different mana cost cards in your graveyard. Another Up the Beanstalk. Alright, so now we're going to play our Narset with Flusterstorm backup. And And that is going to be how we're attempting to beat this Beanstalk. Our opponent has red mana. Lightning Bolt is something that I'm kind of expecting to hit this, so I'm not going to play into it. I'm just going to keep our loyalty on the Narset for now. Minsk and Boo. That lines up really horribly with what we're doing here, doesn't it? Well, we need our Source to Plowshares to work here. Otherwise, we can probably pack this one up. Yikes. Well, this game's going to be over quickly. Our Narset will survive this hit. But I guess we do have the Karakas, so we can just keep this Boo out of play. Marsh Flats doesn't really do what we need it to do here. I think we're on play Cryptic Coat, bounce Minsk and Boo. Polluted Delta. It's very unlikely to ever be a creature in our deck. This does give us a way of pressuring this Minsk and Boo, because they could have Wastelands in their deck, which just takes out our Karakas, and then that puts us in Troublesville. Pretty sure our opponent is a full-on rug deck, looking at the fact they've got a Thundering Falls and a Hedge Maze. I doubt they'd have another colour in there if they're doing that. Lorien Revealed. Volcanic Island. Let's bounce this Boo. Get out of here. Yeah, this is the Eris Storm scary thingy that I mentioned. It's got flying as well, just like a weird dragon. It makes dragons. It does a lot of things, but it is also a legend. Spellseeker. Do you help us out in a meaningful way here? We kind of need to maintain our Narset being alive. But I don't think we get to do that. Is the problem. Our creature's unblockable, so we may as well take a swipe at this Minsk and Boo. How are we supposed to beat this? Like, we can Spellseeker. Oh, no, I know what we do. Yeah, okay. So we have to March of Otherworldly light the Minsk and Boo token, and then Karakas the Eris, because it is a legend. We need this to resolve. We have a Flusterstorm, which can hopefully help do that. Alright. Just going to attack our Narset, yeah. Send it home again. And we get to kill the Minsk and Boo this time around, in theory. Sure, you can play that again. Play another spell and make a guy. That's pretty annoying for us. We're not bouncing this coat because we need to be able to kill the Minsk and Boo this turn. Brainstorm. Could have done with a land there, really. Let's cast this Brainstorm, looking for a plow. Ephemerate. What does that do here? Nothing yet. I don't know how we're supposed to win this game. Our cards just aren't very powerful in terms of the things that we commit to the board. So we're always behind. Because every threat our opponent has is bigger than ours. Unless we get to put Kaldra in, which is like the one thing we can do. These are both coming at the Narset, I believe. Oh no, one's coming at us. Sure, we will prevent that from attacking us there. We do lose the Narset here, which puts us in a bit of a pickle now. The Up the Beanstalk's just going to run away with this game. And we've just given them a card in hand. But we do get to at least say no to this. Good old-fashioned counterspell. Oh, we had another one. Oh, joy. So we bounce this so we don't take damage from it, but then they up the Beanstalk and draw a card every turn. How are we supposed to beat this? And we're drawing an Ephemerate right now. Oh, no. Fire, ice. Tapping down our Karakas. I guess we bounce the guy. I think that's better than using the thing. Okay, so we are in go and get Source to Plowshares. We can Ephemerate and get Pest Control if we need to next turn. We might as well attack with our thing because we're not doing anything else here. Oh, I feel very far behind in this one. Yep, there's Eris Roar of the Storm back again. This Karakas is not a good answer for this. Yuck. Can't say I'm enjoying that one. We've just got this horrible engine that we're providing for them. We have to just kill this Eris with a plow now. But our opponent's got so many cards that might not be a thing we get to do. This could be a Murktide as well. We don't have a Wrath that we can find. Is there any point keeping to play this one? Like, we're not technically dead, but it just feels like we are. Let's take a smash for 5. If they start countering any of our spells, then we can call it a day, I think. Let's plow this. Let's Ephemerate our Spellseeker. We can protect this with the Flusterstorm. So this has to get us a plow this turn, I think. And the hope is that we get another turn. And then we can use this to go and find a... What's that card called? Pest Control. That is what we're planning for. But even after all that exchange and all of our cards gone, our opponent does still have 2 Beanstalks and 5 cards in hand. It's not going to take much. Oh, they've just got another Heiress of the Storm, sure. So now they're just fully gassed up again. Yeah, just let them do all their stuff. To be fair, when I played that, the deck our opponent's playing, it was an earlier build of it, sure, but it didn't feel like it was doing this sort of thing very often. Oh wow, our opponent's just absolutely starting on us there. Yeah, there's no way we win that game. I don't even know how we're supposed to win this game. If they get a Beanstalk into play, we almost certainly lose. Pest Control's a funny one here. Hydroblast though, that definitely looks good. Back to basics. I think we're going to need some help with that sort of thing. Need this Narset and these Bowmasters too. I like this sort of stuff. I don't think Orange Chant is where I want to be. I don't think this is a Surgical Extraction matchup. I think the Assimilation Aegis, getting rid of Heiress, is pretty handy. Lion Sash is fine and grows. I think a lot of our equipment seems fine here. I like all our removal spells. Prismatic Ending seems good. March of Otherworldly Light is going to be a bit more expensive. Not sure I want to be there. Counterspell, fine. Flusterstorm is reasonable to fight over some stuff. Like the Ephemerate just feels a bit, you know. Take out the Archaeomancer. We haven't got to do that. I don't think we're going to. We're just a control matchup here. We just want to be controlling our opponent's things. Does that mean we don't want the Kaldra? Maybe. Kaldra is something we can race with if we get into a bit of a panic. Like the Batterskull is good for stabilizing our life total. Maybe we don't want the Flusterstorm. Maybe that's not what this one's about. Okay. I don't feel very confident, but I haven't felt very confident all league. We put a couple of wins on the board already. Snapcaster with nothing to Snapcaster. Narset. This hand is just too slow for Legacy. This hand doesn't have mana. Does have removal though. I guess we have to keep this on 5. I guess we get rid of Pest Control and a Scrubland. This way we at least get a couple of Meticulous Archives off. We're keeping the Narset because it's probably the only thing that gives us any chance of winning this matchup. Crest and go get Meticulous Archive. Force of Will. Sure. I'll take that one. So we have Counterspell available with Force of Will, so we can fight over a Beanstalk. No Beanstalk. I will go and get a Surveil Land at the end step. We're not in back to basics mode. Not a thing we have the luxury of trying to play towards this game. Karakas is fine. Opponent's got some mana over there, so I'm not sure if I want to just slam a Narset. I think I'd rather fight on our opponent's turn than untap and slam a Narset. We have to be the control, but we are behind because we have less cards than our opponent because of our mulligan. But they haven't put any pressure into play, so that does favour us a little bit. Left a card on top. A Narset. No thank you. Let's counterspell that around a daze. A Force of Will. I will fire a Force of Will into this. And then I guess I hope I draw a land so I can pair around days. We did. I think we hold up the land that stops Minsk and Boo. Really not the time and the place for back to basics, is it? Okay. I don't think that's something we should realistically have been playing towards, and we were already cards down and needed to get some value. Yeah, alright, we lose our Narset there. But again, because of the mulligan, we kind of have to be working towards more cards. Mystic Sanctuary, was I going to get back Brainstorm? Put back a Force of Will. They're taking quite a defensive line. That's probably like game over, I think. I don't know how we're supposed to beat that. Our opponent's just got like an engine, and we don't have an engine in our deck. We'll fire off this Brainstorm, but I'm pretty sure I'm just going to scoop this one up now. Okay. So you're saying there's a chance. Alright. Our opponent still gets a 2 for 1 there. Or a 1 for 0 on their part. Minsk and Boo. Right, we at least have the Karakas. That's something. But we don't have any way of pressuring this. This doesn't hit this. So we're probably going to be just putting this Urine into our hand. We're a ways off of actually doing anything with it though. There's a little hamster pal. Bounce this again. All this time it's still accruing tokens on the Minsk and Boo, so it's going to be harder and harder for us to pressure it. And we can't tap out of our Karakas, so we need to draw a lot of land to put this Lorien into play. If we're drawing a lot of a land, then we're probably not doing anything in the meantime. So, not feeling spectacular about this one. I didn't shuffle off that ponder. So there's the land that we knew was on top. That gets us one step closer to Yorion. They can do an awkward thing where they can try and make us daze, to pay around a daze to get our Yorion in, which will force us to tap down our Karakas, which isn't the thing we want to do. Assimilation Aegis isn't really able to hit the things we want. Our opponent has got a Force of Will over there. So the first thing we cast is not going to have a great time. We're just in this holding pattern, but our opponent's got better draws than us, I would say. Because they've got actual engines in the form of the Beanstalk, which continually accrues them advantage, whereas we don't have that. A Brainstorm. So our opponent is tapped out of Force of Will temporarily. Obviously, they've got a million cards in hand and can just pitch cast it. A Wasteland. Well, that kind of tips our hand there. We need a land now to play the game. It's a land, I guess. We will put this into play now. I think we just get an Underground Sea, so we can't be wasted off of black. I think we take the 4 this turn. And then next turn try and Solitude it. Although we know they've got... yeah, we know they've got the Force of Will in hand. So let's see if we can bait the Force of Will out so our Solitude could resolve. No, they just let us have it. Yes, it's not a resource for them. They just get it every turn anyway. Spellseeker. Yes, please. This gets us Hydroblast. It's going to be the Force. Yep. Now you get Minskin Boo again. Take the 4 this time. And we hope that the Solitude can do its job. Well, nope, we're not about that. We need to Solitude this away and start pressuring this Minskin Boo. Alright, they're trying to draw the cards off it this turn. White, white, white. Let's play a Solitude. Yeah, I think we're done here. Yeah, that just felt awful. Really felt awful. So we finished with a 2-3 record, which is not very good. And I've got a lot of thoughts as to why, so let's get right into talking about them. So our deck's got a lot of like cute stuff in it, you know, like lots of singletons that can be quite powerful. But we are a Spellseeker deck, and we are a Yorion deck, so we have a lot of option to find them without them jamming up our hand. So that seems pretty reasonable. But what just doesn't really work to me is our deck, it's going to sound weird, but it doesn't really do anything. So if we don't have a Stoneforge Mystic, what are we doing? We're maybe playing like a 1-1 or whatever. Now, yeah, we're supposed to be the control thing. We don't have a repeatable source of like card advantage or whatever. So, you know, we don't have... Like, Teferi can draw you a card, but it takes a lot of turns for this to actually start giving you card advantage. Narset does give you card advantage, but it's limited how much it gives you. It's not like we have, like, the Wandering Emperor, who just ticks up and does something every turn, and every turn it's in play, you end up in a better spot. We don't have anything like that. And Stoneforge Mystic being our only creature and being very easy to answer, I've just been very unimpressed every time I play Stoneforge Mystic lately. I played it in the black-white scam deck, and it didn't really do very much for us there, and it didn't feel great here either, so I'm just not really convinced by it in the meta right now, because there's so many creature decks in Legacy right now. Loads of people reanimating creatures all over the shop, so everyone's packing removal, everyone's got removal, and you've only got one creature, so this is just going to eat it most of the time. And then our deck doesn't really do anything, it just treads water until what? We hardcast a Solitude? Like, what are we doing? If we had some, like, Triumph of St. Catherine's, we used to have something to draw to that can go, okay, let's slap this big thing down, and all of a sudden we can turn the corner and do stuff. But instead we're kind of, like, having to get up to 5 mana to hardcast Batterskulls and Solitudes before we can make any sort of, like, stabilization. Like, we can kill stuff, but then we're just, like, hoping to draw more answers than our opponent draws threats. And we don't have any, like, really good stabilization like a Triumph of St. Catherine, or, you know, the Bant decks that have Uro. If we had something like that, you know, it draws a card on the way in, gains you some life, keep you alive a bit more, and then if you're removing stuff left, right, and centre, you've just got this card that you can go, okay, all these removal spells I've cast, we escape, use them for the escape cost, smash a big guy into play, and not only is Uro a big guy that wins the game, it draws you cards, right? It draws you cards and it stabilizes your life total. We don't have anything like that, and we don't have like a up the beanstalk that we're trying to leverage for card advantage that, you know, every turn that we have it, we feel stronger and stronger because it's getting us deeper into our deck and giving us more things and just improving it. Or a Leyline Dowser, where every turn it's filtering you a card, and that card's either going to your hand or in the graveyard if it's not something you need. And we don't have any sort of engine to really work with here. And like, yeah, we've got some Ephemerates, but like, what are we ephemerating, right? Are we waiting till turn 3 to cast our Stoneforge just so we can ephemerate it? That feels very slow in Legacy. This is a thing that we can only blink on turn 4. We do have the Solitude. That's a very solid thing to do. But we're a Yorion deck. The chance of having the stars aligned to have these things in hand is just too low. I just don't like this deck. I think it's not proactive enough. I don't think it has enough staying power. Like, yeah, maybe you lock someone out of back to makes it great. But if you don't, what are we doing? We just don't have the sort of staying power to stabilize a game and sort of grow ourselves out. And, you know, one of the decks we beat was a Storm deck, and one of the decks we beat was a Goblin deck. Now, the Goblin deck we won because they had 2 colorless lands for the whole game. Let's be honest about it. And the Storm deck is one where having a deck without threats doesn't matter as much if you can like lock them out and just have all the things you need to stop them from ever playing the game. You know, so things like Stony Silence, a bunch of counterspells, Lavinia, that sort of stuff. So I just don't like trying to win the game with this deck because I just don't think it's very good at winning the game, and I don't think it's even that good at stopping yourself from losing the game because we're always behind against a lot of our opponents, and it just felt like we were treading water. We didn't have anything to, you know, change things up. The other day, possibly yesterday for you lovely people, I played a Leyline Dowser hot band list that I brewed up myself. And obviously when you brew up a deck yourself, you have a little bit more insight into how to play it than compared to just picking up a deck like this from the DECKLIST dump of like challenges and things. But what that deck did is, yeah, we were just trying to answer our opponent's things, but we had engines. You know, we could just go, okay, let's keep dowsing, or we could Uro. Both of those things are engines that get you into the game and, you know, help you stabilize, help you pull ahead of your opponent. We don't have anything to pull ourselves. And we don't have a big I win button after we've controlled the game, like Forthy or Lingus, where you can just go, okay, I'm just going to make like a 2-turn clock that also cantrips. We don't have that sort of staying power. And I've played Esper decks recently. Now, we're not really an Esper deck, we're just splashing with Pest Control. But I did play the Esper Leyline Dowser build recently, and I think I got a trophy with it. You can go back and check that one out. But again, that had engines, and it had much better stabilization because it's running Trivent, say Catherine. I just don't like these control shells. I don't know where they're going, if you know what I mean. We need like viable stabilization / win conditions, like your Uros and Wandering Emperors and things. Like if you watch Bosch and Roll's channel, which you should do because he's one of the best content creators out there, and he's a very good player. He plays a lot of blue-white decks. He loves that sort of blue-white control-y thing. But if you watch a lot of his decks, he'll always have like engines and stuff in there. So he'll have a few planeswalkers in that will gain you incremental advantage as you stabilize the game. You suddenly start pulling ahead, or like looping Shark Typhoons or whatever. Just having an engine where, given time, like a control deck is trying to buy itself time, right? And you want engines in your deck so that given time, you gain advantage. And the two things together is what makes a control deck function. And this didn't really function. I don't really think we can call ourselves any sort of aggro deck or whatever. Like Stoneblade decks in the past used to have more creatures and be a little bit more aggressive. This is not really that. It's pretty pure on the control spectrum, but we just have some Stoneforges that can do some stuff. So it kind of feels a little over the place to me. Now, like I did say earlier that I'm not really a Stoneblade player. So maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I'm not doing this deck justice. Obviously, it won a challenge, but it might just be because the person who played it is very good and had a good run. You know, that these things are all possible. But I just don't see why you would play this deck in Legacy. I think you're just leaving yourself very vulnerable to a lot of things by playing a deck like this. And there's not a lot of margins in this deck for error, and I don't think the reward is very high either. So, a bit of a negative one from me, I'm afraid. But I think more important than whether I think it's good or bad is the reasons I've articulated. I think why this isn't where I want to be. I'm just not a Stoneforge Mystic believer at the moment. I think there are definitely times when it feels good, but now in Legacy is not one of them. And I don't know what the reason to play this one is. Also, trying to play on basics but also have Pest Control in the early game can be a little bit awkward too. I think if we want to do back to basic stuff, we want to lean a little bit more heavily into it. I do like Pest Control as a card, but for some of the things you need it to do, Dress Down does a similar job in terms of things like as a sagas. Obviously, Pest Control sweeps up wherever they find with it, so it is better at doing that. So maybe it's fine to have the Pest Controls in here, but I just don't feel like this has the tools that I want when I'm playing a slower deck in Legacy right now. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one and my thoughts on it. If you've got some thoughts on this deck and anything I'm missing, I would love to hear it because, you know, I am, you know, relatively often wrong on this channel because I play a lot of decks and I'm not an expert with every deck. You know, I have the few sort of archetypes I like to play and the things I have lots of repetitions on, and I have been playing Legacy for a long time. But in that period of time, it doesn't necessarily mean I've played every deck and mastered it by any stretch of the imagination. So this is relatively far out of my comfort zone, I would say. But nevertheless, I think I would stand by my comments about how this feels. All right. Quite a big debrief there. I hope you found that useful or interesting. And just let me know what your thoughts are on this one as well. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.